All of those things can happen, and they can happen to you. And it takes a little bit of unpreparedness on your end to essentially lose a lot of the animals that you spent so much time taking care of. Hi guys, how's it going? It's me, Josh Halter, owner and founder of The BioDude, and today I have a short little video for you guys, and I'm going to talk about emergency preparedness with your exotic animals. So, a lot of you guys know that I live in Houston, and Houston is always hit with a bunch of stuff. We get tornadoes, we get hurricanes, we get flash floods, we get, you name it, we pretty much get it here with the exception of snowstorms, which we've even gotten ice storms here a couple years ago. And with me having the infrastructure that I have here, we have to have set in stone emergency evacuation protocols, as well as ensuring that all of my animals here, that in the event of a flash flood that could be coming, like Hurricane Harvey, or we have a really strong hurricane that comes and knocks out electric for 2 weeks, like Hurricane Beryl, that we are equipped to be able to handle those types of hardships, and that way we don't lose all of our animals. Today I'm going to briefly talk about some of the steps that we take here at the BioDude and some of the things that you as keepers can do at home to make sure that we are responsibly taking care of our animals during the time of a crisis when we have the time to be able to do it, because let's be honest, family is always going to come first, your kids, your spouse, but it's also part of our responsibility to make sure that our pets are safe as well. So I have a couple things here on the table. So one of the first things that I always have is a generator. If you guys do not have a generator, I highly recommend you have a generator at home. You can get a Generac installed in your house or your building, which is powered by natural gas. You use electric, boom, Generac turns your whole facility or your house back on, but those are pretty pricey, as is with a normal generator that's powered by gasoline. Not only do they require, monthly to quarterly maintenance, they can be very expensive up front. The generator we have here at the Dude was a couple $1,000s, and that is just enough to power some ceramic heat emitters and other things here. We hope to have a Generac here installed in the building, and hopefully by the end of the month. So a couple things that we always have here is, number one, we always have a box that is styrofoam lined. So this is a reptile shipping box. You can see here, it's really simple. We have a whole bunch of styrofoam pieces with styrofoam in the top. You can also create your own. You can go to Home Depot and get a tub and buy R45, R60 insulation, cut it to specs of your tub, and you can use that big tub as a transport device for your animals. With your animals, we are always using containers like this. So we usually do paper towels with some spag moss, a water dish, or moist sphagnum moss with a container like this. Now, the times that we need to evacuate our animals here, couple reasons. Number one, if we know that it's going to rain like Hurricane Harvey for 5 straight days, and we know that we're going to flood, there's nothing else that we can do about it, that's when I'll be taking proactive steps to gather all of my animals out of their habitat, put them in temporary tubs, and then make sure that they are stored appropriately in the larger transport tubs that are insulated. And then within those tubs, you can use a couple things. I highly recommend using the phase pack, and I highly recommend getting them from Redline Shipping. Robin's done such a good job at making such a highly viable product for emergencies and shipping alike. Fun fact, guys, if you want to make them yourself, just get a bag that isn't very permeable, so a 4 ml plastic bag, and fill it with coconut oil. That is how you can create your own cryo pack that can maintain that temperature around room temperature, whether you put it in the freezer or whether you want to heat it up with a hot hands pack or a Uniheat pack. So when using the face packs, something really important to keep in mind, you don't ever want to put these directly inside the container that the animal is in. In the event that they would leak, or in the event that, that something would, because it's plastic, so eventually does become permeable, right? So you never want to put these directly on the inside. What we recommend is you can get some tape when it's cold, and you can directly tape it here to the side. And then the moment that it's no longer set and you got to put it back in the freezer or put a heat pack over the front of it, then you just remove the tape, put it back on top, put it back in the fridge, pull it out so it's back in its solid state like this, and attach it right on there to the side. Alternatively, you can put it right on here to the top if you're not using a heating source. Again, while this is completely sealed, you just want to make sure that you don't have the animal come directly in contact with them. So whether it's extreme cold or extreme heat, extreme cold, you always want to make sure you have hand warmers. I recommend the Uniheat 72 hours. They will retain a good stable hot temperature for 3 total days. You keep 5 of them to 6 on them on hand. That should be enough to power one of those styrofoam boxes with your animals on the inside, no matter how cold it is, as long as you're temp checking with a temp gun and keeping them around you outside of the elements. Now just keep in mind, those heat pads that you use for your hands you get at Home Depot, they get very hot. You don't ever want to use them for shipping your animals, and you must take those same precautions when using them inside your styrofoam box. But if I was going to be packaging up, example, some of my, one of my snakes, I would put the snake in the container, put the phase pack directly right on top of the containers, close it up. Really, really simple, really, really easy. These should last a good day or 2 within the pack, but that's all you're gonna get. And if you don't have access to electricity or a way to revitalize these in the terms of keeping them cold or keeping them hot, you wanna make sure you have at least those hot packs on hand to be able to keep that liquid state to help maintain that temperature. So when it comes to intense heat, besides using ice packs, besides using cryo packs, if you don't have an ice pack, you don't have cryo packs, you can always get ice. If you have the ability to go get ice at the store, sometimes that was one thing that we were able to get. We couldn't get gas. We couldn't get anything cold. We were somehow able to get ice because they were in those big aluminum stores, that are outside. So in the event that you are not able to make your own ice packs, just remember you might have ice at the store that you might be able to use to create your own ice packs. Although they might not last that long, it's still something to have in the event of keeping track of your animals in the extreme heat. One thing I do want to touch really strongly on is ventilation. When we are dealing with extremes in any temperature, whether it's hot or whether it's cold, how well your habitat or temporary enclosure breathes is paramount to your success. So obviously this small Exoterra habitat, it breathes out here from the front, from these vents, and from the top. So that's gonna help push out excess heat or help regulate that temperature. Whereas these tubs are much more effective at retaining anything, whether it's hot or cold. So the reason we recommend these lids, and these are the vented lids that you use for fruit fly cultures on a 32-ounce cup. This is a 16 ounce, but the dimensions are the same. This is going to allow air to pass directly through top and bottom, which is also going to help with the air quality when it comes to the amount of moisture in the air. Now, if you have a tub like this, and you can see the amount of holes that we have here, this is going to be enough for a pretty small snake. But if they were going to tell you, Josh, I want to put Lieutenant Dan in this tub, my response is going to be, well, we need to line this entire lid with at least 72 holes. Or we're going to drill a hole at the very top, silicone some mesh over the top. When you're putting your animals in any type of temporary holding device, it is very important that it breathes. If it does not aerate top to bottom, your chances of that actually working can become significantly lowered just because of the lack of airflow, and that is very important. Alternatively, a lot of times when we're forced with situations when it's just not possible to get your animals out, some of those animals do need heat. So for example, a couple years ago, someone ripped all the copper wire out of the front of my building, and we didn't have electric for 5 days. And it was the major cold fronts that came in Texas. We had a record low of 15 degrees here. No electricity, nothing. Got my generator out, and we had a whole bunch of these wire lights out with a ceramic heat emitter. Now, I like using the ceramic heat emitters during these situations because they don't pull a lot of voltage, which means you can put a lot of ceramic heat emitters to one master plug that is plugged into your generator, thus giving you ability to keep some of your habitats warmer. These ceramic heat emitters saved a lot of my animals' lives during the freeze. I can tell you, when I lived in Pennsylvania, we had a snowstorm that gave us, it was almost as big as the one in 1993. Long story short, we got 3 feet of snow with another 6 inches of freezing rain on top of it. My apartment in Columbia did not have power for 5 days. My apartment got to 35 degrees. And I, to this day, remember that is when I had all of my tree frogs. That's when I was breeding all of my tree frogs. I did not remove them from their habitat. I did not touch them because I knew that when I was going to pull them out and mess with them, getting them in the cup, that is going to cause more stress to them with the fluctuating temperatures. So what I did was this method right here. I literally got a whole bunch of chicken heaters, which are ceramic heat emitters from the local Tractor Supply with all of these, and I was able to keep all of my frogs alive just using the ceramic heat emitters without actually pulling them out of their habitat. This is a temperature gun. You can get this from Home Depot, you can get this from Lowe's. This is what I like to do when if you lose power and you're keeping your animals in your habitat, I just go through and I'm checking each habitat. And if I need to supplement it with a wire light that's powered off the generator with a ceramic heat emitter, I'm going to do that. I was able to do that on almost all of my habitats here by just fixating a small 30 to 75 watt ceramic heat emitter right on the top. And that was extremely helpful. Next, I highly recommend making sure that you guys have some clean water. Because sometimes here in Houston, we have these natural disasters. Your water now becomes non-potable, which means you can't drink it because the sewage gets mixed in with the water. Now, when that happens, we always try to have at least 1 gallon to 5 gallons of water on hand. That is so that way we can mist our animals with a small mister, or so that way we have the ability to give our animals clean water that might not be potentially harmful to them if ingested. Besides insulating all of your animals and making sure that you have a spray bottle, keeping them hydrated is another big deal, because when you are pulling them out of their habitat, when you are putting them in a little cup, that stresses them out. But the most important thing is when you have animals, you always want to know what you're going to do in the event of an emergency. If you know that there's a Cat 3 hurricane coming your way, what is your plan for your animals? Are you going to get them out of the habitat? Are you going to put them in tubs and take them with you? Or are you going to stay at home and bunker down? If you know that there could potentially be flooding, you want to make sure that any of your heat sources, such as your power strips, your plugs that go into your habitats, your tanks are off the floor. You want to make sure that they are elevated above the floor. These are all things, especially when you live where we live, that we constantly have to take into account, because at this point in Texas, it seems like every 5 years we have a major occurrence of a disaster, whether it's Hurricane Harvey or Hurricane Beryl or Hurricane Ike or a tornado or just something, or a massive freeze that shuts down our entire infrastructure. So when you're dealing with your delicate, sensitive animals, that is something else you need to be aware of. Is me pulling this very delicate tree frog out of their habitat where they can have humidity pockets, temperature pockets, into a little cup that isn't going to be as efficient at maintaining the temperature, going to be more beneficial or less beneficial. Those are all things that when you look at your collection, like I am right now, that you want to know what you're going to do if and when the worst happens. Because I'm telling you right now, when Hurricane Harvey came and I wasn't as prepared as I should be, I, to this day, remember locking my door to my showroom. And I'm not a type of guy that prays, but I said upstairs, I said, I really hope I get to see all these animals again. And after that, I swore to myself that I was prepared in Pennsylvania. I was still getting my feet wet down here in Texas, still understanding how to be prepared with the weather down here. And I'm lucky that, besides losing a couple tree frogs, we did really well during that time. But most of all, when you are having your animals in a temporary container, you want to make sure that you keep them out of the sun. Okay, you want to keep them out of direct sunlight, because it is just going to cook on the inside. And I can't tell you how many times it shows I've had to explain to people, keep your frogs out of the light in this cup. It's happened one too many times than I would like to say. And during the time of extreme temperatures, do not feed your animals. Do not feed your snakes. Do not feed your lizards, do not feed your frogs. Not only can that excess stress cause undue gastrointestinal distress, it can also sometimes make snakes regurg. And we all know how it's not good when the snakes regurgitate. So again, when you plan your emergency session, when you plan your evacuation or your ability of how you're going to keep these animals here, it comes down to the animals themselves. How well you know them, how well you know their temperament, how well do they handle handling and being moved into other habitats? Are they extremely delicate with temperature swings like dart frogs, or are they much more hardy like a ball python? All of these things I want you to ask yourselves, how do my animals fall into these categories, and how can I continue to be prepared? Guys, we have a really good blog as well on the website about this. I highly recommend you check it out. That has links to a lot of the products that I'm talking about here. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We have a whole team here that deals with this every single year because we live in Texas. And that's just what happens down here. So I really appreciate everybody's support. Just a quick little video of how we handle some of our emergency preparedness here at the BioDude. You can visit my store or visit my website, biodude.com. Appreciate everybody's support. The dude abides.